The galaxy had been screaming for 3,000 years, but no one was left to hear it. Captain Tejo stood on the bridge of the human ship New Sol, watching the stars through the main window. He was a tall man with kind eyes, but those eyes had seen too much in recent weeks. The ship was moving through empty space, following a distress signal that had reached human territory just days ago. "Captain," called out Dr. Haya Jin from her station. She was the ship's scientist, a smart woman who studied alien life. Her voice was worried. "I'm getting more of those signals. They're all saying the same thing." Tejo walked over to her console. The messages were broken and full of static, but the fear in them was clear. Species after species calling out in terror before their signals went dead forever. Far across the galaxy, on a massive ship that looked more like a living creature than a machine, Huntmaster Crystal examined his latest prize. The creature stood 12 feet tall with black armor covering his body and claws that could cut through steel. His yellow eyes glowed with satisfaction as he looked at the bones scattered around his feet. The Delphini had been beautiful creatures. They lived in crystal cities under the water and sang songs that could make stars weep. But beauty meant nothing to the Vorthak. Beauty was just another thing to destroy. "How long did they last?" asked Crixtel's assistant, a smaller Vorthak named Thexmore. 6 rotations, Crixtel replied, his voice like grinding stone. "Longer than the bird people of Centauri. Not as long as the rock creatures from the outer ring." Thexmore nodded and made notes on his data pad. Every hunt was recorded. Every species was catalogued. The Vorthak kept careful records of their kills, the way some beings kept records of their art or music. The Vorthak Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They were perfect killing machines created by evolution to hunt and destroy. Their ships were alive, grown rather than built. Their weapons were parts of their own bodies. They needed no tools because they were tools. On the New Sol, Dr. Hyjin was trying to understand the patterns in the distress calls. She had been studying alien communications for most of her life, but these messages were different. They spoke of creatures that came from nowhere, destroyed everything, then vanished again. "Tejo," she said quietly, "I think we need to change course." "Why?" he asked. "Because if these signals are real, we're flying toward the most dangerous things in the galaxy." Tejo looked at the star map. The signals were coming from the edge of known space, from worlds that human ships had never visited, but the distress calls were getting stronger, which meant whatever was causing them was moving closer to human space. "We have orders," he said finally. "The Earth Council wants to know what's happening out there." Light years away, the Galactic Council was meeting an emergency session. The council was made up of the few species that had survived long enough to build star-traveling ships. Most of them were old and careful, having learned that being noticed usually meant being killed. Ambassador Kiwan sat at the human table, feeling very young and very new. This was humanity's first time at the council, and he could feel the other species watching him. The ethereals, who looked like living crystal, whispered to each other in voices like wind chimes. The Verdans, plant creatures from green worlds, rustled their leaves nervously. The luminals, beings made of pure energy, flickered with worry. "The situation grows worse," announced the council leader, an ancient ethereal named Veltar. 17 more systems have gone silent in the past cycle." "It's them, isn't it?" whispered a Verdan representative. "The apex hunters." Every being in the room knew who they meant. The Vorthak were legends, stories told to frighten children and keep space travelers close to home. But the legends were real, and they were spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Kiwan listened as the other species spoke of the Vorthak in hushed, terrified voices. They told stories of worlds stripped bare, of entire species vanishing overnight, of hunting ships that tracked their prey across star systems. "What do they want?" Kiwan asked. The room fell silent. Finally, Veltar answered. "They want to hunt. It's all they've ever wanted. They see other life as prey, nothing more." "But surely they can be reasoned with," Kiwan said. "All intelligent life can communicate." The ethereal's crystal body dimmed with something that might have been sadness. "Young human, they have destroyed 4,000 species. 4,000 different ways of thinking, of living, of being. Gone forever because the Vorthak found them interesting prey." Back on the New Sol, Tejo was beginning to understand what they were facing. The ship's computer had been analyzing the distress signals, and the pattern was becoming clear. The attacks always followed the same plan. First, the Vorthak would watch a species for weeks or months, learning their habits and weaknesses. Then they would strike without warning, overwhelming any defenses. Finally, they would hunt down every last member of the species until none remained. They're not just killing, Dr. Hyojin reported. They're studying each species before they destroy it. Like they're collecting information. Information for what? Asked Commander Dongwu, the ship's military officer. I don't know, Hyojin admitted. But they're learning something from each species they kill. The truth was worse than they imagined. In his private chambers, Huntmaster Krixtal was indeed studying the genetic samples taken from each hunted species. The Vorthak had not evolved their incredible abilities naturally. They had stolen them piece by piece. From every species they had destroyed. The speed of the Centauri birds, the armor of the rock creatures, the intelligence of the deep space dwellers. All of it had been absorbed into Vorthak biology. They were not just hunters. They were thieves, stealing the best parts of every species and adding them to their own bodies. This was why the Vorthak were so interested in new species. Each new type of life might have something useful to steal. Each new hunt might make them even more perfect killers. As the new soul moved deeper into the danger zone, Taeho couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Dr. Hyojin had noticed strange readings on the ship's sensors, like something was following them just outside their detection range. Captain, called the communications officer. I'm getting a signal. From where? Unknown. But it's not like the distress calls. This one is different. The signal was indeed different. It was strong, clear, and full of confidence. When the translation came through, everyone on the bridge felt their blood turn cold. Greetings, unknown species. We are the Vorthak. We have been watching you. You interest us greatly. We will find you soon, and when we do, we will learn everything about you. Every strength, every weakness, every secret. And then we will hunt you as we have hunted all the others. Try to run if you wish. Try to hide if you can. It will only make the hunt more entertaining. The signal ended, leaving the bridge in total silence. Huntmaster Krixtal smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. Another new species meant another new hunt, and this one had ships which suggested they might be more interesting than usual. The Vorthak had not had a good hunt in several cycles. Most species died too quickly to be sporting. But there was something different about the readings from this new species. Their biosignatures were strange. Unlike anything in the Vorthak databases, this might actually be challenging. Krixtal began to prepare his hunting ships. Somewhere in the dark between the stars, a new game was about to begin. Captain Taeho stood in the center of the New Soul's bridge, watching the empty space ahead of them. 3 days had passed since the Vorthak message, and the silence was making everyone nervous. Dr. Hyojin had tried sending peaceful signals in return, using mathematics and simple pictures to show that humans meant no harm. The Vorthak response came without warning. "Captain," shouted Lieutenant So-Young from her station. "Multiple contacts coming in fast." The main screen showed what looked like living nightmares. The Vorthak ships were not built like human vessels. They were grown, shaped like enormous predators with teeth and claws. Their hulls pulsed like heartbeats and strange lights moved under their skin like blood. "How many?" Taeho asked, his voice steady despite the fear growing in his chest. 7 ships, no. Wait, 12. They're moving too fast for clear readings. Commander Dongwu was already at his battle station. "Should we raise shields?" Before Taeho could answer, the first Vorthak ship fired. The weapon was not energy or metal, but something alive. It hit the New Soul's hull and began eating through the armor like acid. "Shields up. Return fire," Taeho ordered. The human ship's weapons lit up space with bright energy beams. But the Vorthak ships moved like living creatures, twisting and turning in ways that should have been impossible. They seemed to know where each shot would go before the humans fired. "They're not trying to destroy us," Dr. Hyojin said, studying her readings. "They're studying us." She was right. The Vorthak attacks were careful and measured. Each weapon hit a different part of the ship, testing the strength of human armor and shields. When the humans fired back, the alien ships recorded how their weapons worked and how fast they could aim. "This is not a battle," Dongwu realized. "This is an experiment." Huntmaster Krixtal watched the human ship from his command center, his yellow eyes bright with interest. These new creatures were more entertaining than most. Their ship was well built, and they responded to attacks with surprising speed. "Report," he commanded. "Their weapons are energy-based, similar to the Centauri birds but less powerful," reported his weapons officer. "Their shields are strong but adapt slowly. Their ship movements suggest they think in 3 dimensions, unlike the flat world species. Crixtal nodded. And their biology? Interesting. They appear to be made of carbon and water, but their brain activity is very high, much higher than species of similar size. Good. Intelligence makes for better hunting. On the new Sol, Engineer So Young was fighting to keep the ship running as more alien weapons hit them, but she noticed something strange about the attacks. "Captain," she called out, "they're not hitting us randomly. Each shot is testing something different. Our engines, our life support, our communications. It's like they're taking our ship apart piece by piece to see how it works." Tejo felt sick as he understood what was happening. The Vorthak were not just studying their ship. They were learning how to kill humans more efficiently. "Can we escape?" "I'm trying," called the pilot. "But they know where we're going before we get there." The human ship turned left and the Vorthak ships were already waiting. It turned right and they were there too. Every move the new Sol made, the aliens had predicted. Dr. Hyejin was working frantically at her station, trying to understand how the Vorthak ships could move so well. "Their ships are alive," she announced. "They're not machines at all. They're creatures." "What does that mean?" Tejo asked. "It means they don't just know how to fight, they know how to hunt." The truth was even worse than she thought. The Vorthak bioships had absorbed the hunting instincts of hundreds of predator species. They could smell fear across space, sense the electrical patterns of thinking brains, and predict the movements of prey with perfect accuracy. As the battle continued, one of the Vorthak ships managed to clamp onto the new Sol's hull. Metal claws punched through the armor and the alien vessel began cutting its way inside. "Boarding party," Dongwu shouted. "All security teams to Deck 7. Security Chief Jae-sung led his team toward the breach, but they had no idea what they were about to face. When the first Vorthak warrior came through the hole in the hull, Jae-sung's men opened fire with everything they had. The bullets bounced off the creature's armor like raindrops. Energy weapons left small burns but did not slow it down. The Vorthak warrior moved through the human defenders like they were not there, its claws cutting through body armor as if it were paper. But the creature was not trying to kill everyone. It was selecting specific targets. Jae-sung watched in horror as the alien grabbed Medical Officer Yoon Seo and 2 of his best soldiers, then began dragging them back toward its ship. "They're taking prisoners," he reported over the radio. "Stop them," Tejo ordered. But there was no stopping the Vorthak. More warriors had come through the breach, and they moved with the coordination of a pack of wolves. They took what they wanted and left, sealing the hole behind them with some kind of living metal that grew like skin. The bioships pulled away from the new Sol, their mission complete. They had learned what they needed to know about human weapons, human defenses, and human biology. Now they had living samples to study. On the Vorthak flagship, Crixtal examined the 3 human prisoners with great interest. They were smaller than most species the Vorthak hunted, but they showed no signs of the complete terror that usually came with capture. Yoon Seo, the medical officer, looked directly at the huntmaster with calm, measuring eyes. When Crixtal reached out with one clawed hand to touch her face, she spat at him. "Interesting," Crixtal rumbled. "Most prey species lose the ability to think clearly when captured. These creatures remain functional." The other prisoners, soldiers named Kyung-ho and Woo-bin, were studying their surroundings rather than cowering in fear. They seemed to be looking for weaknesses, for ways to escape or fight back. "Run full biological scans," Crixtal ordered his science officers. "I want to know everything about these creatures. How they think, how they fight, how they die." Meanwhile, the damaged new Sol limped toward the nearest human outpost. The crew was shaken but alive, and they carried with them the most important information in human history, proof that something was coming for them. "Send a message to Earth Command," Tejo ordered. "Priority Alpha. Tell them we've made contact with a hostile alien force unlike anything we've prepared for." Dr. Hyejin was still analyzing the data from the encounter. "Captain, I need to show you something." She brought up images of the Vorthak bioships on the main screen. "Look at the design of their vessels. The claws are like those of the Andorian ice bears. The teeth are similar to the Rigel sharks. The armor patterns match creatures from at least 12 different star systems." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying they've taken the best parts from every predator species they've encountered." "They're not just hunters, Captain. They're collectors." The implications were terrifying. If the Vorthak had been building themselves into perfect killing machines for 3,000 years, what chance did humanity have? As the new soul reached the outer edge of human space, they received a transmission from the colony world of New Busan. The message was short and filled with static. This is Colonial Administrator Hyunwoo. We're detecting multiple unknown ships approaching our system. They're not responding to our signals. We're preparing to evacuate, but we need time. Please advise. Taeho closed his eyes. The hunt had begun. On the Vorthak flagship, Krixtal was reviewing the biological scans of his human prisoners. The results were puzzling. These creatures had evolved as persistence hunters, designed to chase prey over long distances until it collapsed from exhaustion. But they also showed signs of pack coordination and tool use that rivaled the smartest species the Vorthak had encountered. They are optimized for a type of hunting we have never seen, reported his chief scientist. Not ambush predators like us, but pursuit predators. They can run for days without stopping, and they work together with complex strategies. Krixtal found this information interesting but not concerning. Persistence hunting might work on creatures that could get tired, but the Vorthak felt no fatigue. Their stolen biology had made them perfect. What he did not understand yet was that persistence hunting was not just about physical endurance. It was about mental endurance too. It was about never giving up, never forgetting, and never forgiving. The humans were about to teach the galaxy what that meant. The farming colony of New Busan had never seen a military ship before the Vorthak came. It was a peaceful place where families grew food for the growing human settlements in nearby star systems. The colonists were farmers, teachers, and engineers who had left Earth to build something new among the stars. But when Colonial Administrator Hyunwoo received the warning from the new soul, everything changed. "How long do we have?" asked Chung-ho, the colony's safety coordinator. He was a former soldier who had come to New Busan to forget about war, but war had found him anyway. "The alien ships will reach us in 6 hours, Hyunwoo replied, looking at the tracking data. Maybe less. 6 hours to evacuate 8,000 people was impossible. The colony had only 2 small transport ships, and the nearest human military base was 3 days away. They were trapped. "Then we don't evacuate," Chung-ho said quietly. "We fight." Dr. Minji looked up from her computer terminal. She had been a military scientist before becoming a farmer, and she still remembered things that peaceful people should not know. "With what? We have farming equipment and emergency weapons. They have ships that can destroy planets." "We have something they don't expect," Chung-ho replied. "We have time to prepare, and we know they're coming." While the colonists prepared for the impossible, the 3 human prisoners on the Vorthak flagship were learning about their captors. Medical Officer Yoon Seo had been studying the aliens during her captivity, using her medical training to understand their biology. "They're not natural," she whispered to her fellow prisoners during one of the rare moments when their guards were not watching. "Their bodies are made from parts of other creatures. Look at their claws, those are from ice predators. But their armor is from desert hunters. No single evolution could create something like this." Soldier Kyung-ho nodded. "So they steal abilities from other species?" "That's exactly what they do. Which means they have weaknesses from all those species too." The Vorthak had made a mistake by keeping the humans alive. They thought they were studying prey, but the prey was studying them back. On New Busan, the colonists worked with desperate efficiency. Chung-ho had divided them into teams, each with a specific job. The farmers who knew the land became scouts. The engineers who built irrigation systems became trap makers. The teachers who understood how children learned became tactical planners. Dr. Minji had taken control of the colony's chemical supplies. Fertilizer became explosives. Pesticides became weapons. The greenhouses that once grew food now grew death. "This is insane," muttered Engineer Dalho as he helped wire explosive charges under the main road. "We're farmers fighting apex predators." "No," Chung-ho corrected him. "We're humans." When the Vorthak ships arrived, they saw exactly what they expected. A peaceful farming colony with no significant defenses. The bioships landed in the main square, their hulls pulsing with anticipation. Huntmaster Krixtal himself had come to oversee this hunt, curious about how humans would react to their first real encounter with Vorthak ground forces. The alien warriors that emerged from the ships were 12 feet tall and covered in black armor that had grown from their own bodies. Their claws could cut through steel, Their eyes could see in total darkness, and their noses could track a scent across continents. They had destroyed 4,000 species with these abilities. But as they moved into the colony, something felt wrong. The settlement was too quiet. There were signs of recent activity: warm cooking fires, half-finished meals, children's toys scattered in yards, but no people. The humans had simply vanished. "Spread out," Krikstal ordered his warriors. "Find them." The first trap triggered when a Vorthak stepped on what looked like solid ground. The irrigation ditch beneath had been widened and filled with sharp metal stakes covered in industrial acid. The warrior fell 20 feet and died screaming. The second trap was more subtle. Dr. Minji had filled one of the farm buildings with an invisible gas that attacked the Vorthak's stolen respiratory system. 3 warriors entered the building and collapsed within minutes. But the humans were just getting started. Seung-ho had studied every report from the New Soul encounter. He knew the Vorthak were ambush predators who relied on overwhelming force and fear to defeat their enemies, so he gave them neither. Instead of fighting in the open where the aliens had every advantage, the humans fought from hiding. They used the colony's underground tunnels to move without being seen. They struck quickly and then disappeared before the Vorthak could respond. Farmer Jun Ki, who had spent years hunting pests that damaged crops, became a sniper. His knowledge of wind patterns and patience learned from long nights protecting fields made him deadly against enemies who had never been hunted. Before, teacher Yoon-suk used her understanding of group psychology to coordinate attacks. She knew how to make the Vorthak afraid, how to break their confidence by killing them in ways they could not predict or prevent. As the battle continued, Krikstal found himself facing something completely new. The humans were not behaving like prey. They were not running in panic or fighting desperately for their lives. They were hunting his warriors with cold, methodical precision. "How many have we lost?" he demanded. 17 warriors, his second-in-command replied. "The humans are using tactics we have never encountered. They attack and retreat, attack and retreat. They never stay in one place long enough for us to strike back." Krikstal's confusion was turning to anger. In 3,000 years of hunting, no prey species had ever killed 17 Vorthak warriors. Most species lost hundreds of their own people for every Vorthak death. "Burn the entire colony," he ordered. "Force them into the open." But when the bioships began firing on the buildings, the humans were ready for that too. The underground tunnels had been connected to create a network that reached every part of the settlement. As the surface burned, the humans moved safely below ground. From their hidden positions, they continued their attacks. Dr. Minji's chemical weapons made the air itself dangerous for the aliens. Engineer Dalho's traps turned every step into a potential death sentence. The Vorthak warriors, used to hunting prey that ran in straight lines, could not adapt to enemies that appeared from nowhere and vanished like ghosts. The turning point came when Seung-ho realized something important about Vorthak psychology. These creatures had never experienced prolonged pain. As apex predators, they killed quickly and efficiently. They had no tolerance for suffering. "Target their wounded," he ordered over the radio. "Don't kill them quickly. Make them suffer." It was a cruel tactic, but it worked. The sounds of their wounded companions affected the other Vorthak warriors in ways they had never experienced. Fear began to creep into their perfect predator minds. Meanwhile, on the Vorthak flagship, the human prisoners were making their move. Yunseo had been studying the ship's biological systems during her captivity, and she had found their weakness. "The ship is alive," she explained to Kyung-ho and Woo-bin, "but like any living thing, it can get sick." Using her medical knowledge and materials stolen from the ship's laboratory, she had created a virus designed specifically to attack Vorthak biotechnology. It would not kill the ship quickly, but it would make it very, very sick. The 3 humans broke out of their cell during the night cycle, when most of the crew was resting. They moved through the ship like shadows, avoiding the sensors by following patterns Yunseo had observed during their captivity. They reached the ship's central nervous system, a huge, pulsing brain that controlled everything from life support to weapons. Yunseo injected her virus directly into the neural tissue. "How long before it takes effect?" Kyung-ho asked. "Hours, maybe less. But we need to get out of here before they realize what we've done." The escape was easier than they had expected. The Vorthak were so focused on their pride and their superiority that they had never considered the possibility of prey fighting back successfully. Their security systems were designed to keep things out, not to keep prisoners in. As the three humans stole a small escape pod and fled toward human space, the virus began its work. The flagship's biosystem started failing one by one. Lights flickered and died. The air recycling system began producing poison instead of oxygen. The ship's living hull began to blister and crack. Back on New Busan, the battle was reaching its climax. Half of the Vorthak ground force was dead or wounded, and the survivors were beginning to panic. These humans were not prey, they were something worse. They were predators who had learned to be better hunters than the Vorthak themselves. Crixtal himself had been wounded by one of Dr. Minji's chemical traps. The burning pain was something he had never experienced before, and it made him realize a terrible truth. The Vorthak had spent 3,000 years perfecting their ability to cause suffering, but they had never learned how to endure it. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from our flagship. They report major system failures and request immediate assistance." Crixtal looked around at the burning colony, at his dead warriors, at the humans who continued to strike from the shadows like vengeful spirits. For the first time in his long life, he felt something that no Vorthak was supposed to feel. He felt afraid. "Signal retreat," he ordered. As the surviving Vorthak fled to their ships, the humans emerged from their tunnels to watch them. The news of New Busan's victory spread through human space like wildfire. Admiral Chanho stood in the command center of the human fleet's flagship, watching reports come in from across the galaxy. What had started as a desperate defense by farmers had become something much larger. Humanity was at war. "How many ships do we have ready for combat?" Chanho asked his staff. 237 vessels of various sizes," replied Commander Inho. "But sir, most of them are exploration ships or cargo haulers. We only have 43 actual warships." Chanho nodded grimly. The human military had been designed to protect colonies from pirates and settle disputes between worlds. No one had prepared for a war against creatures that had spent 3,000 years perfecting the art of killing. "Then we'll have to become something we've never been before," Chanho said. "We'll have to become better predators than they are." The first human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where other species had tried to match the Vorthak's strength with strength, humans attacked their weaknesses. Dr. Junho, a military strategist who had been studying the New Busan battle, had realized something important about their enemies. "The Vorthak are ambush predators," he explained to the fleet commanders. "They're designed for quick, overwhelming attacks that break their prey's will to fight. But they've never faced persistence hunters." "What's the difference?" asked Captain Wu Jin of the destroyer Dokdo. "Ambush predators rely on the element of surprise and superior force. When those advantages are gone, they don't know how to adapt. Persistence hunters, on the other hand, are designed to keep coming no matter what. We don't need to be stronger or faster. We just need to be more stubborn." The human fleet began implementing tactics that horrified even their own soldiers. Captain Wu Jin led the first mission, a strike against a Vorthak patrol group near the Kepler system. When the alien bioships detected his approach, they prepared for their usual quick victory. Instead, Wu Jin rammed his damaged ship directly into the largest Vorthak vessel at full speed. The explosion destroyed both ships, but it also showed the Vorthak something they had never seen before: prey that was willing to die to hurt them. The psychological impact was immediate. The surviving Vorthak ships retreated, reporting that these humans fought like mad beasts who cared nothing for their own survival. But humans were not just throwing their lives away randomly. Every sacrifice was calculated. Every loss was planned to teach the enemy something new about human determination. Meanwhile, other human ships were hunting individual Vorthak vessels across star systems. Team leader Rayon had taken command of a small group of fast ships designed for one purpose: to track and kill single Vorthak hunters. The chase of hunt leader Vextar became legendary. Rayon's team followed the alien warrior across 7 star systems over 3 months, attacking his ship whenever he stopped to rest or refuel. They never tried to destroy him quickly. Instead, they wore him down slowly, day by day, until his bioship was barely functional and his mind was starting to crack. "This is not hunting," Vextar reported back to his superiors. "This is torture. They follow me everywhere, attack when I least expect it, then disappear before I can strike back. They are not prey. They are something else." The something else was persistence hunters doing what they had evolved to do: wearing down their prey until it could run no more. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Kiwan was meeting with the surviving refugee species. The crystalline ethereal Veltar had brought disturbing news. "We have been monitoring the conflict," Veltar said, her crystal body flickering with nervous energy. "The humans are winning battles, but they are also changing." "What do you mean?" Kiwan asked. "Your species is becoming something darker. The tactics your military uses would have been considered war crimes by any civilized species. You are fighting monsters by becoming monsters." Kiwan was quiet for a moment. He had read the reports from the front lines. Human soldiers were using biological weapons, psychological torture, and tactics so brutal that even the Vorthak were beginning to fear them. "Sometimes," he said finally, "the only way to stop a predator is to become a better predator." The ethereal's light dimmed. "And what happens to the galaxy when you are finished? Will you stop being predators, or will you simply find new prey?" Kiwan had no answer for that question. The war's turning point came when human scientists achieved something that had seemed impossible. Dr. Young Mi, a biochemist working in secret laboratories on Earth, had been studying genetic samples from captured Vorthak technology. "They've stolen abilities from every species they've killed," she reported to the military command, "but that means they also carry the weaknesses of every species they've absorbed." Young Mi's team had developed a virus specifically designed to attack Vorthak biology. But this was not a quick-killing weapon. This virus was designed to cause maximum suffering over a long period of time. "It will strip away their stolen abilities one by one," Young Mi explained. "First, they'll lose their enhanced strength. Then their improved senses. Then their resistance to pain. Finally, they'll be reduced to what they were before they started stealing from other species. Weak, frightened animals." The virus was deployed through captured Vorthak bioships that had been infected and then released back into enemy territory. The Vorthak's own living vessels became weapons against them, spreading the disease through their fleets faster than they could understand what was happening. Huntmaster Krixtal was among the first to feel the virus's effects. The constant pain from his wound at New Busan had already taught him what suffering felt like. Now, as the virus attacked his stolen biology, that suffering became unbearable. "What is happening to us?" he demanded of his science officers. "The humans have created a weapon that targets our enhanced genetics," came the reply. "It's stripping away everything we've gained from 3,000 years of hunting." Krixtal felt his enhanced strength fading. His perfect senses became dull and confused. His claws, once sharp enough to cut through starship hulls, became brittle and weak. For the first time since his species had become apex predators, he was experiencing what it felt like to be prey. The psychological impact on the Vorthak Empire was devastating. Their entire society was built on the belief that they were perfect predators, superior to all other life in the galaxy. When that belief crumbled, their civilization began to collapse. Vorthak warriors who had never known fear suddenly found themselves terrified of shadows. Ships that had hunted fearlessly across the galaxy began fleeing at the first sign of human vessels. The hunters had become the hunted, and they had no idea how to cope with the change. But the humans were not finished. Captain Haywan led the ground assault on the Vorthak stronghold at Zerion Prime, a world where the aliens had built monuments from the bones of extinct species. The battle was not about territory or resources. It was about sending a message. "Every species they killed deserves justice," Haywan told her troops as they prepared for the attack. "We're going to give it to them." The assault on Zerion Prime was designed to be as terrifying as possible. Human soldiers used weapons that caused prolonged agony. They took no prisoners. They showed no mercy. The Vorthak warriors, weakened by the virus and psychologically broken by months of being hunted, could barely fight back. As Krixtal watched his stronghold fall, he finally understood what the humans were. They were not just another species to be hunted. They were something that should never have been awakened. "Send a message to the homeworld," he ordered with his dying breath. "Tell them we have made a terrible mistake. We thought we were the galaxy's apex predators, but we were wrong. The true predators were sleeping, and we woke them up." The message reached the Vorthak homeworld just as human fleets appeared in the outer system. Admiral Chanho's ships surrounded the planet like a pack of wolves circling wounded prey. The Vorthak had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years through fear and overwhelming force. But they had never faced an enemy that was willing to be patient, to learn, to adapt, and to never give up no matter how long the hunt took. They were about to learn what it felt like to be on the other side of extinction. On Earth, Dr. Youngmi was already working on the next phase of humanity's plan. The virus had been just the beginning. Now she was developing something even worse, a weapon that would ensure the Vorthak could never threaten anyone again. "Are we going too far?" asked her assistant, looking at the biological horror she was creating. Youngmi thought about the 4,000 extinct species. She thought about the terror the Vorthak had spread across the galaxy for 3 millennia. She thought about all the civilizations that would never have a chance to exist because the apex predators had killed them before they could evolve. "No," she said quietly, "we're not going far enough." The galaxy was about to learn that when persistence hunters decided to end a threat, they didn't just defeat it. They made sure it could never threaten anyone ever again. The Vorthak homeworld of Korthak Prime had never known fear. For 3,000 years it had been the center of an empire built on terror, where the bones of 4,000 extinct species decorated the streets like monuments to perfection. The planet's surface was covered with cities carved from alien skeletons, museums filled with the preserved remains of entire civilizations, and hunting grounds where young Vorthak learned to kill. But as Admiral Chan Ho's human fleet surrounded the world, something new filled the air. The smell of fear. "This is Admiral Chan Ho of the human military fleet," came the broadcast that reached every corner of the planet. "You have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. Any attempt to flee or fight will result in the complete destruction of your species." On the planet's surface, the remaining Vorthak leaders gathered in their great hall built from the rib cages of space whales. These creatures had once been the most feared predators in the galaxy, but the virus had weakened them, and months of being hunted by humans had broken their minds. "How many ships do the humans have?" asked Elder Korthvan, his voice shaking with sickness and fear. "Our sensors count over 800 vessels," replied War Leader Thexmore. "But that cannot be correct. Humans are a young species. They should not have so many warships." The truth was worse than they imagined. Most of the human fleet were not warships at all. They were cargo ships, exploration vessels, and even civilian transports that had been converted into weapons of war. Every human ship in the galaxy had come to Korthak Prime for one purpose: to witness the end of the Vorthak Empire. Captain Inho stood on the bridge of his converted mining ship, looking down at the world below. His vessel was armed with industrial mining lasers that could cut through asteroid rock. Today he would use them to cut through something else. "All ships, this is Admiral Chan Ho," came the order over the radio. "Begin the final phase." The attack on Korthak Prime was unlike any battle in galactic history. The humans did not try to conquer the planet. They did not try to capture prisoners or steal technology. They simply began erasing the Vorthak from existence, building by building, city by city, life by life. Commander Hai Wan led the ground forces that landed on the planet's surface. Her soldiers moved through the bone cities with cold efficiency, destroying everything they found. But they were not just killing Vorthak. They were destroying the monuments to extinct species, freeing the bones of 4,000 dead civilizations from their alien captors. Every species they killed deserves to be remembered properly, Haywan told her troops. "We're going to give them proper burials." The irony was not lost on anyone. The humans, who had been forced to become predators to fight the Vorthak, were also the first species to show respect for the aliens' victims. In the deepest vault beneath the planet's surface, Engineer Seok-jin made a discovery that shocked even the hardened human soldiers. The Vorthak had not just collected bones and genetic samples from their victims. They had preserved the minds of entire species in crystalline storage devices. They kept the consciousness of every intelligent species they killed, Seok-jin reported over the radio. 4,000 different ways of thinking, trapped in these crystals for thousands of years. The discovery changed everything. These were not just monuments to genocide. They were prisons holding the souls of extinct civilizations. Dr. Hye-jin was brought down to the planet to study the crystals. Using technology learned from the ethereals and other surviving species, she found a way to communicate with the preserved minds. The first voice that spoke from the crystals was weak and tired, but filled with desperate hope. Are you here to free us?" asked the consciousness of a being whose species had died 2,000 years ago. "Yes," Hye-jin replied, tears running down her face. "We're here to free all of you." The liberation of the crystalline prisons became humanity's greatest priority. Working day and night, human scientists and engineers created a massive network that could safely transfer the preserved minds into quantum storage systems where they could exist in peace. As each consciousness was freed, they shared their knowledge of the Vorthak with their rescuers. The humans learned that the alien empire was even more evil than they had imagined. The Vorthak had not just killed these species, they had tortured them for centuries, learning every detail of their biology and psychology before finally granting them death. But they had also learned something else. They had learned that some of these extinct species had developed weapons that could destroy the Vorthak completely, weapons that had been lost when their creators died. Dr. Young Mi worked with the freed consciousness of a species called the Architects to create the final solution to the Vorthak problem. The Architects had been builders and healers, but they had also been very practical people. When they realized the Vorthak were going to kill them, they had designed a weapon specifically to prevent their killers from ever threatening anyone else. It's a genetic virus, the Architect consciousness explained, but not like the one you created. This one doesn't just attack their stolen abilities. It attacks their capacity for violence itself. The weapon was elegantly simple. It would rewrite Vorthak DNA to remove their predatory instincts, their ability to feel pleasure from causing pain, and their desire to hunt other species. It would not kill them, but it would make them incapable of being apex predators ever again. They will become what they should have been all along, the Architect explained. Peaceful creatures who care for other life instead of destroying it. Some of the human commanders were not satisfied with this solution. Colonel Rayon argued that the Vorthak deserved complete extinction after what they had done. They killed 4,000 species, he said during the strategy meeting. Why should they live when none of their victims could? But Ambassador Kiwan, speaking for the freed consciousness of the extinct species, had a different answer. Because we are not them, he said. We are better than they are. We don't kill for pleasure or dominance. We kill to protect others. If we can protect the galaxy without committing genocide, then that's what we should do. The vote was close, but Mercy won by a narrow margin. The genetic virus was deployed across Korthak Prime, spreading through the air and water until it reached every surviving Vorthak. The transformation was immediate and dramatic. Vorthak warriors who had spent their lives killing suddenly found themselves horrified by violence. Hunters who had taken pride in causing suffering became physically sick at the thought of hurting other creatures. Elder Korthvan was among the first to experience the change. As the virus rewrote his genetic code, he felt his bloodlust disappear, replaced by something he had never experienced before: empathy for other living beings. He looked around at the bone cities his people had built and felt overwhelming shame and sorrow. For the first time in his life, he truly understood what the Vorthak had done to the galaxy. We are monsters, he whispered, falling to his knees among the scattered bones of extinct species. What have we done? What have we done? Across the planet, similar scenes played out as the Vorthak faced the true horror of their actions for the first time. Many of them went insane from the guilt and grief. Others spent their remaining lives trying to make amends for crimes that could never be forgiven. The human fleet remained in orbit for 6 months, making sure the transformation was complete and permanent. During that time, human scientists worked with the freed consciousness of extinct species to catalog and preserve everything that had been lost. When Admiral Chanho finally gave the order to leave Korthak Prime, the planet was a very different place. The bone cities had been dismantled and replaced with memorials to the extinct species. The former Vorthak had become caretakers of these memorials, spending their lives maintaining monuments to the civilizations they had destroyed. But as the human fleet departed, other species in the galaxy watched with a mixture of gratitude and terror. The humans had saved them from the Vorthak, but they had also shown themselves to be something potentially just as dangerous. Captain Inho sat in his ship's command center, looking at reports from across human space. Humanity was expanding rapidly, establishing colonies on former Vorthak worlds and building a fleet that dwarfed anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a message from the Galactic Council. They want to establish formal relations with humanity." Inho smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "Tell them we'll consider it. But make sure they understand that humanity doesn't ask permission to do what we think is right." Meanwhile, on the human colony world of New Busan, Young Dayun played in the gardens that had been built where the battle against the Vorthak had taken place. She was too young to remember the war, but she had grown up hearing stories about how her people had defeated the galaxy's most feared predators. In her small hands, she held toy spaceships, some shaped like human vessels, others like the alien bioships they had fought. She made them chase each other through the air, always making sure the human ships won in the end. "Why do the human ships always win?" asked her friend Minho Da-eun, looked at him with the serious expression that only children can manage when explaining something very important. "Because we're the best hunters in